Happy day, happy day. Welcome to Display Artist Function. My name is GrindheadJim, and I am joined today by my dear, dear friend Boba Hicks here, bringing him on the screen for you guys right now. There he is. How you doing, buddy?
How's it going, Jim? I'm doing well. I hope you're keeping well. Hope everybody out there in internet land is doing good. Ready to
I
talk
hope
about
so
the
too.
big news.
Yes. We're just gonna jump right into it. There's no need to preamble. The news has been out for about 90 minutes or so, and there's been some developments since that really kind of hone in what we're talking about, and that is DC has granted a multi-year license to Mattel Toys to make DC toys, and there was a few people popped up right away, and I knew that this would be a theory, and I want to squash this right out of the gate. They're like, Attorney Eclipse, and at the time it was a viable theory. And he said, my guess is it's another hideous, horrendous Motu crossover idea. I'm sure that will still happen. And, if you look at like the Primal Age stuff and all that, like that's totally possible that Mattel will take a stab at this. And I think that would be interesting, but that's not it. The LA Times came out with an article that clarified a couple of things. And they're not talking about like certain stuff they could do. They're not talking about they've always announced these crossovers as such. They've always done that. And this is not that. So I want to jump right into the article, and we're going to read the most relevant stuff, and we can always come back to details if anyone asks us to do so. So here we go. LA Times article, going right into what's going on here, says that Mattel has reclaimed highly coveted rights to create action figures and collectibles based on DC characters such as Batman and Superman starting the second half of 2026. If this were just some small crossover or a part of the rights that aren't already covered, it would start right away. All right, or within like by summer or something like that. Okay, if they're waiting until the second half of 26, it also squashes my initial theory that this was strictly related to the DC cinematic universe that James Gunn is creating. I think that squashes it because their biggest movie, the big one that's going to define whether or not this goes anywhere, is that Superman film coming out. So I think that squashes that too. So just based upon the timeline, and it says highly coveted rights to create action figures and collectibles. So that means there's a lot of stuff out there. And you get a direct quote from PJ Lewis, the Mattel Senior Vice President and the global head of action figures for Fisher-Price. He says, quote, "It's a huge deal. You're dealing with some of the greatest superheroes and some of the best action figure potential in the industry, and we're incredibly excited by that," unquote. That's not specific, except to say that he's covering all of DC and all kinds of action figure stuff. So that it's clear that they're not going to be limited to a scale or a property. No. These are the DC rights in no uncertain terms. Now, we don't know what that means for, say, Spin Master or McFarlane Toys, and we'll get into that after the article. But it certainly means that Mattel's got a lot of stuff to work with. It talks about here how they lost the rights about 6 years ago, and they were still allowed to produce some preschooler toys and whatnot. It is a multi-year deal, as highlighted. Here it says it could help fuel sales for them, and directly calls out Hasbro, who produced Marvel. And they talk about their earnings and that they're doing pretty well. The financial terms were not disclosed. It explains what a license is. And it says the agreement includes all rights for all DC stories and characters, including Wonder Woman, Joker, and Harley Quinn. And it says Mattel, along with figures, Mattel will also be able to create and market DC-themed play sets, accessories, and role-play products. So this is literally a huge deal that has been made. I think this is for the whole enchilada, and that I think this paragraph really solidifies that. Between that and what they said about, the general toy market, they talk about how the toy market has stabilized a bit in the last year as opposed to where it's been. They have that annoying Kidults article, which I'm going to pass right by because fuck that bullshit. And a quote from Mattel Senior Vice President of Entertainment says, "This renewed quote, this renewed partnership will reflect our shared passion for engaging and inspiring fans and collectors of all ages," unquote. You're getting the top guys at Mattel talking about this, and the phrase renewed partnership. That means it's basically the same deal they had before. If they were needing to be super specific because the terms of it are such, I don't think they'd be using such far reaching, wide terminology. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I think as well the fact that it was mentioned specifically that they'd lost out previously to McFarlane and Spin Master suggests to me that they now have, if not all the pie, they've pretty much most of the pie under their control.
Yep.
Very interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
and it's so exciting. And the next paragraph says the announcement also comes as filmmakers work on new DC movies over the next few years. So it's a little bit of both. It's like there's a new DC cinematic universe. We're going to go with Mattel this time, see what they can do. And it just kind of talks about the history of films and TV shows, long history of Mattel working with Warner Discovery. And they do have some other licenses through Warner Discovery, including Harry Potter, Friends, Seinfeld, stuff like that. So they've been around the block. So I think that there's a trust level there because they've been working together for a long time. Rob Oberschlepp, the head of Warner Bros. Discovery, was quoted as saying the DC brand's like the crown jewel of the company, and that the battle to obtain the licensing rights was highly competitive, meaning it was a bid war, it sounds like. And the company considered manufacturers' business models, track records in design work, distribution, and innovation when weighing the options. This means, to me, this is my assumption, that this was the McFarlane license renewal up for debate, the Spin Master license up for renewal and debate, and that Mattel got the whole shebang-a-bang. And if that is true, I think it is excellent news. I think it's excellent news. We'll get into that here. Quote from Robert Oberschlepp says, quote, "What Mattel really brought was a very clear understanding of our brand," unquote. He said, adding that the toy maker's global reach was an important factor. Spin Master does not have the global reach, and McFarlane, I think, struggles in the international market, to be honest. You would probably have more to say on that than I do. Quote from Robert says, "You have content coming every way that's going to be in front of the fan to get them excited. What we're going to be able to do is extend that storytelling," unquote. So they're ready. Like, they are ready for this. I did not see this coming. Many a time in private, when we used to have like the hangouts regularly with all of the YouTube members and Patreon and just the boys, right? We used to speculate and whinge and cry. We would love for Mattel to get DC back or to get Marvel, right? We've talked about that. I did not think this was going to happen. But to hear it and then to have this article confirming that it's just, that's the deal. Like, starting second half of next year, boom, Mattel gets to start fresh again. I was over the moon. What are your feelings right now? Because I know this is the first time you've heard the article.
Yes, and I was glad to get a little bit more detail there because, like a lot of people, when I heard the headline originally, I was maybe underestimating just the gravitas of the occasion. I thought, yeah, it's probably just going to be a simple crossover with some other property that they already have a license with. But like I mentioned earlier, the fact that the article mentioned specifically that they had lost out previously to McFarlane and Spin Master. I also think that final paragraph that you quoted, where it was specifically mentioned about Mattel's global reach compared to McFarlane and Spin Master. Spin Master and McFarlane, I do see their stuff on shelves. It's there, but Mattel is king. Mattel stuff is everywhere. The Jurassic aisle, the WWE aisle. Barbie, they're a big deal. And McFarlane, I have no real dog in the fight when it comes to the McFarlane stuff. I have
Yeah.
a few pieces. In no way would I say I have a deep McFarlane DC collection. So in that respect, I'm not too worried about, say, oh no, well, what if Mattel totally like ditch that scale or ditch that particular style? But I can
Right.
understand maybe if people like yourself or possibly others, if you are currently collecting McFarlane lines, maybe this news might not be too welcome to you, depending on where you're at.
Yeah, and we're getting conflicting uh, opinions here so far. And I want to say hi to Stu. I see him here. Good to see you, mate. Bjorn Jorgensen is here, and the aforementioned attorney in Eclipse. Thanks for being here. Mr. Jason Garcia says maybe it's to announce the return of some old collectibles. Could be some old decent. It could be they could reintroduce some stuff in addition to whatever else new they might have planned. He goes on to elaborate, so maybe get some actual 6-inch scale DC figures with Legend style updated articulation. I think that's entirely possible. One of the things that I said that I was really excited about was the fact that they probably still have the molds from the DC Universe stuff they put out, and I have about 5 or 6 of those, and I have about, I'd say, between 10 and 20 McFarlane stuff, and they mix nicely. They do. I like both for different reasons. I think McFarlane does a great job with articulation. I think each figure tends to scale well with others for the most part, as far as within the line. But I think McFarlane's choice of a 7-inch scale versus a 6 has always been an Achilles heel of that line. And if Mattel is smart and sticks with the 112 scale that they're really good at with WWE and to a lesser degree, Motu is technically a 6-inch scale when you straighten their legs out, right? The whole 5.5-inch thing has always been a misnomer. If you straighten their legs and stand them up, they're 6 inches tall, and their proportions are just ridiculous. So we just say 5.5 because they squat. I think that would be a good thing. Stu does not. Stu says, I really hope this doesn't affect McFarlane in any way. I think he's done a great job with the DC Multiverse figures. I think that article confirms that it's over, at least for now. And there's certainly a really long line and a big range of figures that he's put out, and I think he's been given a fair stab at it. It's not like he's just getting started and he's getting cut off. He's had it for over 6 years. And he's put out every major character out there for the most part. Right? So maybe it's time to give Mattel another shot. And if I compare, and this is my opinion, you may have a similar opinion. If I compare a DC Multiverse McFarlane figure to a brand new WWE Elite figure, the difference is palpable. McFarlane stuff, the quality ranges. Whereas I've never opened a WWE Elite, and I'm using that line specifically because that's the most articulation and whatnot. They're smooth. If anything, I hit them with a tiny bit of heat initially. I only do that for ones I buy that have been on the shelf a long time. If you get them fresh, they're pretty posable. And there's something about the way Mattel's figures articulate in general, whether we're talking Masterverse, we're talking about Origins, we're talking about WWE, whatever. There's a smoothness to it with no ratchets, and they're just solid figures. And even the most expensive Mattel toy, I'm not too worried about dropping it on the floor. I'm just not, because they know how to make a solid quality toy. I don't always feel that way about the McFarlane stuff. You can tell that they're more hollow. With the additional articulation of, say, the toes, which I love that as an option, I always worry that foot's going to snap in half as well. The stands they include in DC Multiverse stuff, they're next to useless. Standing a DC Multiverse figure is fucking hard for me. Like they just don't want to stand. That's my experience. How do you feel about that comparison?
Yeah, well, like I said, only have a few. I'll tell you, I have three. I have two Keaton Batman and the Christopher Reeves Superman that they recently
Hmm.
released. Um, one of my Keaton Batman sits in the Batmobile, so he doesn't need to stand.
Right.
The other Keaton Batman, unfortunately, is in a kind of he's in an action pose, but by necessity, not by choice. Because yes, you are correct. The stand doesn't do shit. The leg joints are just, and it is what it is. It's a nice looking figure. I will say one thing about McFarlane: their sculpts do look very nice for the most
Yes.
part. But like you said, the feel of the figures when you're kind of considering the quality and the heftiness of the figure, it's not always quite up to par. I will just to say, Stu, I get where you're coming from, and this is why I put that question out there at the beginning. Like some people just may not feel too happy about the situation, especially if you're deep into McFarlane at the moment,
Right.
and you're worried about that style of figure, going the way of the dodo. Once again, just to reiterate, we are very fresh on this news. We are just interpreting, a media blurb there, but it's so overwhelmingly positive about the fact that they've even used like we've won the license. It just feels like they've got the whole kit and caboodle
They
here. So
mentioned, yeah, they mentioned the bidding war. They mentioned that Mattel won that fight specifically, like you said. Go ahead.
yeah, so I'm just hopefully we're wrong in that respect, in the sense like I don't want people to be upset that they can't get a thing anymore that they enjoyed collecting. But
But,
maybe it won't
but,
be so bad.
yeah. So, for example, nope, that's not right. Let me go this way. So, let me show you a Mattel figure. Let me get the lights on this so it might actually. There you go. So, this is from 7 or 8 years ago. You've got a thigh swivel on this. You got knees. You got ankles. Um, you got your ab crunch right here. Um, tricep swivel, elbow bend, removable hands. Like this is a great figure in and of itself. Okay, this is a Wonder Woman. I got this because, well, McFarlane's Wonder Woman's always sell out. So I got this one for a really good deal. And what I find interesting also is that the Mattel aftermarket for their older stuff is probably going to actually go down once the new ones come out because they're presumably going to be even more articulated. I'm dropping figures everywhere. I can't do it. But I think the quality is there even from something that much older. So I have every reason to believe that Mattel will put out a quality product that, even though it's a 6-inch scale probably and not a 7, we don't know that for sure. They make Masterverse, which is 7 inches. They may continue. And if that's the case, if you're collecting DC Multiverse for McFarlane Toys now, I don't think you're going to have to miss a beat. You may just have to wait a little bit longer for them to come around on some characters that maybe you want that he hasn't made yet. Let's go ahead and check in with chat real here. Little Pee Wee says, Jim, love to see you. I love to see you. I hope that was a good impression. Terry Clips coming back says, so does this mean Superpowers could get a reboot possibly? Not saying I don't like what Todd has done, but the characters we I hope so. However, I don't think that's going to happen, at least not right away. I think that would be a bit of a kick in the teeth in some ways. But I also feel like McFarlane has plenty of time to go nuts. Be like, all right, I've got this much time. Let me put this stuff out there. And they've got 55 figures in the line right now. And almost, 15, almost 20 vehicles now, I think, something like that. Some crazy amount of vehicles. if you count variants with paint, right? Same with the figures. They're doing a Fortress of Solitude playset this summer. Has been heavily substantiated, and there's more figures to come after. And I think if he were going to really go nuts before the license ends, the smart play would just be to reproduce every figure that was ever made for the original line as they existed. He's already started. He's got your Detective Batman, the more recent Superman that came out, which I think is the best 4-inch Superman that has ever been produced, without exception or asterisk. I think that would be the play. Now, if Mattel had balls and would just continue that line, I'd be happy. I'd be real happy. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I doubt it, though. I don't think you'll want to see that right away. They want to kind of establish their own identity as for their toy line and go from there. Little Pee Wee goes on to say, if Mattel can start making DC stuff as good as their new He-Man stuff, it'll be amazing. That's kind of where I think Mark and I are at. And there's no reason to doubt that. Steve M says he's happy about it. Do want to see if it's going to go 6 or 7. He's assuming 7. I'm really hoping 6. I really am, because 7-inch lines need to die. 7 inch is stupid.
No,
I think
go that far.
Why, like,
stuff, it can work. It can work 7 inches.
It can, especially when you're forced to put him in an action pose and it kind of hides the scale a little bit. Look, the McFarlane stuff that I have, I love it. I love it. I really do. But I love Mattel's, the way they make toys a lot more. And I know it's going to sound like I'm a fanboy because I'm a Motu guy or whatever. I recently, within the last few months, started getting a smattering of wrestling figures. And I remember telling Mark, because you're also a wrestling enthusiast, I'm just like, I can't believe how good this figure is. Why did no one tell me about this? Because they're just so good. And the sculpts are, if you want to talk about sculpts, these are of real people that exist, right? And there's no denying, Undertaker looks like Undertaker, Iron Sheik looks like the Iron Sheik, and they're not using the exact same buck. They have a really wide range of bucks and heights of people within the scale that they have, and it's beautiful. So you figure that you've got all these bucks from WWE, that they could copy those molds, and you've got a great starting point to make these figures. And now we find out they've got over a year to R&D and just push out some designs and just be ready. As soon as that deal starts, they just put in the damn order, and we'll have some pre-orders up like the day of, and then we'll have them a couple months later, I think is what's going to happen. Hyperdelic says that they hope that we get DC figures in 6-inch. Want to collect but hates McFarlane. Nothing but great news. Fair enough. Gojatrons here says, at work I'll catch the replay. There's a seismic shift coming to the toy industry. Hold on to your butts. And Hyperbolic is saying, ooh, Motu and DC. If that happens, great. If not, I don't care. Frankly, I'm going to get right to the point on that one. Getting into some tinfoil territory, we were having a private chat amongst me and the boys, and Goji was wondering, like, was Todd or Speedmasters losing out, or did Mattel take the whole thing? And as far as the article goes, I think it makes it pretty clear. But he put on his tinfoil hat and said, well, what if, because Hasbro's pulling away from toys, what if McFarlane gets Marvel and then starts going in that direction, right? And with his experience with DC, just turns right around, does his own line of Secret Wars in the 4-inch, which that would be the way to, like, nab some people. It certainly would me, because I would go all in on a 4-inch Marvel line. Are you kidding me? And with the articulation that he offers with the DC stuff, I think there are some people that really would love to see that. And so if you've been primarily a DC person, he loses the license, gets Marvel, and starts doing that, that's great for you. And then vice versa. Like myself, I'm very Marvel Legends heavy, and I've been kind of cherry picky about the DC stuff. I might go ham on a Mattel 6-inch line because it'll match up with the... So there's possibilities here. There's obviously that's total conjecture and speculation. We don't know that Todd's going to get the Marvel license at all. What we do know, though, is he's been dabbling with these statues that have been coming out lately, and he certainly has a relationship with them. And we know that Hasbro has stated unequivocally that they're kind of pulling back from action figures. And I do feel like if you look objectively at the Marvel Legends toy line, they're running out of new things to do. And a lot of the stuff they've been doing for the last 18 months or have announced are Hail Mary, if the license ended tomorrow, what would you put out? Kind of stuff. Like with the Dragon Man and Rom and all this other stuff. I do feel like perhaps there is writing on the wall. Now, will the timing coincide with this Mattel thing? No, I don't think it'll be exactly in line with that. But it does feel like Hasbro's like, eh. And to a lesser degree, Star Wars, I think. Because they're getting to that point where they're just reissuing stuff they've already done. You know, which is not a bad thing. It just shows that maybe the steam is running out a bit. And it would be interesting for McFarlane to swoop in and take the Disney license altogether. We can't say that with any certainty. But it certainly is possible given this new news. Any comments on that?
Well, I think that, first of all, not throwing any shade on McFarlane, I actually think that their product has improved a lot. Like, I've been buying McFarlane stuff before they got the DC Multiverse license. Like, I'm talking way back in the day. I used to buy McFarlane figures. They were after my old Kenner Alien and Predators, I think the next licensor to get Alien and Predator was McFarlane. So I bought a lot of those figures back in the day. They were glorified staction figures, very brittle, very basic. So their product has come a long way in terms of their output. And, maybe in some ways they were kind of boxing above their weight a little bit with that DC license, based on what they were able to put out in the time they had it. But I do think overall they did an admirable job with it. Like the pieces I picked up, like I know we were complaining about the stands, but overall I have to say they're pretty decent pieces. I think what may have possibly moved this deal to happen is these new DC movies that are on the cards, because if you're pushing Mark from a movie, you probably want an established manufacturer and distributor who's done this type of thing for you before. McFarlane, you might remember, maybe anybody in the chat might remember. I'm just not sure how great they were at pushing like current property stuff and really like having a presence. Like a heavy presence.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you a great example. The Walking Dead. They are doing a toy line on The Walking Dead. And I thought, oh, they did it while the TV show was running. Nope. This is a fairly new toy line. This is like they're barely a year in. And I got excited because my wife and I just binged the whole thing. I'd never seen the show. I had kind of refused. And she's like, it's good. She's like, I don't know what happens in the last season. I kind of stopped after that. But so we experienced the whole thing together. And then the last season we experienced together as well. And the show's good. And I'm kind of like, I wouldn't mind having some core characters on the shelf. She's like, yeah. So I looked into it. And sure enough, they have it now. Years after the show is over. And they just have these sideshows. So I don't know. When it comes to like the movie tie-in stuff, they've been pretty good-ish. Good-ish. From what I've seen. It doesn't seem to be their focus. One of the things that got them their start was like those classic horror movie figures from back in the mid to late 90s. And they were kind of establishing themselves. And then, yeah, they've come a long way from those initial like Spawn releases and whatnot. To your point, I don't think McFarlane does that very well. I think Mattel does a better job of that. Like Jurassic Park being the example I'd play there. So And I know you get some of that stuff, and so do I.
Yeah, I do. And look, you can't deny it. Like, I go into my local Smiths, and the Mattel Jurassic aisle is a feature aisle. It's pretty significant, and they just have past experience putting out product for big productions. And I think that DC just they don't want to chance it with McFarlane or Spin Master. I think they're looking for the old reliable in this instance. And I
Yeah.
actually, as much as we're getting excited for the potential for all type of stuff we like, there is a good chance that for this first little while of this new deal, we're only going to be seeing new movie related product, or at least a lot of
Yep.
new movie related product.
Yeah.
The type of stuff that I might be interested in may not be a priority for a ways down the road. So look, we'll just have to see how it goes.
Absolutely. And Little Pee Wee's chiming in and says, I hope Mattel can keep the trend of wired capes going. And if we must get plastic capes, at least can we get multiple cape options? Because articulation means nothing if your cape is a cone. I agree. Looking at the WWE line, they use soft goods all the time, like constantly. I can't speak to any of that stuff being wired, nor would it need to be. But given the amount of craftsmanship you get in one of those toys, I don't think it's too far of a stone to throw to say that they would probably be smart enough to do that. And if at the very least they would do soft goods more often than not. However, the older Mattel DC stuff had plastic capes. So there's no telling for sure. But again, that was 6-7 years ago. And when they started the license, it was 10, 12, 15 years ago, when toy manufacturing standards were different. So things have changed. I would certainly hope they would do that. And I think that the Mattel of today, it's 50-50. But here's hoping they lean more towards what they've learned with WWE versus other stuff. Because they don't really do a lot of soft goods in Motu. In fact, I can't think of any Origins that have soft goods at all, nor Masterverse, which is a shame, but also understandable. Who knows? Who knows? Bob Squad is here. Hello, and thank you. Glad you're enjoying it. We're going to keep this going for a while. So as we say, it makes a lot of sense that they're going to do movie tie-in stuff be their priority, and I think that's smart. I also feel like announcing this now and seeing conversations like this might sway them a little bit. So those of you that have YouTube channels and have, any kind of soapbox wherein to stand upon, tell them what you want. Because nothing is etched in stone yet except for this deal. So if we want certain things, they need to know what we want. So I think that they would do very well to do a 4-inch line and keep the Superpowers branding if they can, which might be a problem, because I don't know how that licensing works out. Because it used to be a Kenner product, and Superpowers is a DC thing because they had the comic book. I don't know how that works. Probably it falls under the DC license, and if they continue that, it would be smart. But I can't say that they will. Any more than I can say that they will make a naked Superman figure. I don't know what they're doing. I think they're going to play it safe at first. I think anyone would. But to me, playing it safe would be, do your movie tie-ins, but immediately start with a comic book adjacent line too. Get the characters out there. Get the big ones out right away. That first wave should be Superman, Wonder Woman, classic, Neil Adams, Batman, Robin, Joker, Penguin, Lex Luthor. Correct all the mistakes that we often see. And just say, here's, boom. I think of it like that first wave of Motu Origins. Hard hitting. Like, these are like your main characters. Bam. And if you just buy these, 8 figures from the first couple of waves, you're probably going to get your nostalgia hit and be fine. Maybe get a Castle Grayskull and out, which is fine because they get a big nut at the beginning, and hopefully that gains momentum. And I think Mattel kind of is good at that. Like they didn't, like with Jurassic Park stuff, they didn't put out like one or two of the main characters of the film. They put everything out. And then they just put variations of things, different vehicles, stuff like that. I don't see them deviating too much. And Steve, with the correction, says Masterverse has had soft goods. Scareglow and King Grayskull. I did not know that. Thank you for correcting me. So there you go. I mean, that sets precedent. Figuratively speaking, his join says, hello. Hello, sir. It's good to see you. Really good to see you. So anything is possible, and that's both the best and worst part about this. Because when you have this much of a lead time and such a overarching license at this point, I hope that their design teams and product research teams are as giddy as I am right now. Because they could do anything they want. I think if they're smart, they'll continue superpowers, but it won't be right away. I think if they're smart, they'll do 6-inch again, because their older stuff was 6-inch. And if they're smart and they save the molds, they'll just reissue a lot of that stuff with some updated articulation. I think that would be super smart, because that stuff was great. You know, our friend Jim Largo, Mr. Largo's Lair himself, has a pretty substantial collection of those, and they are beautiful and age well too. You know, when I get something that's several years old and it just articulates like great, that's a good sign of the durability of this stuff. Absolutely nuts. So I don't want to spin too many tinfoil theories here. Beyond the McFarlane Marvel flip flop that is possible. But I will go a bit further. What if Spin Master got the 4-inch license for Marvel as a result of this?
That would be interesting. That would be very interesting.
Because Hasbro has dabbled and never really committed to that scale. We'll see. I can't say with any certainty that I know what's going to happen, but knowing they have everything and knowing Mattel's history, not just with the DC brand, but also with the other properties they have, all scales are possible. Vehicles and playsets are definitely a high probability. And the one thing I can say is that I don't think it'll be a bad thing. I really don't. Even for someone who, if you are collecting DC Multiverse religiously, I think that once the initial shock wears off, I think most people will probably be satisfied enough. Little Pee-wee from chat here says, man, I also hope they bring back more comic book aesthetic. Kind of tired of all the photoreal faces and non-comic book bodies. So he's hoping for more fantastic-looking things as opposed to, like he says, photoreal. Yeah, I hope that is the case too. I look at, for example, the Parademon from the DC Multiverse Superpowers 6-inch line. It looks just like the old figures, kind of bow-legged and stuff, and it's got some non-human things. They don't reuse every buck and all these things. As soon as you said that...
I'll tell you my hot take, possible might happen theory, and we can, you can go back to this video in the future and be like, Mark, you fucking idiot, you got that totally wrong. But I think the next couple of new big DC movies are probably going to tank. I don't think they're going to be that good. I just have that gut feeling, okay? And I think Mattel, they'll do as good a job as ever putting out merchandise, but at the end of the day, if the movies don't hit, the merchandise will not sell. And I predict this in the first year or so we're going to see something like that happen before they pivot to the more comic booky / cartoon / non-movie properties. I think they'll let the movie figures fail first, and they will fail because the movies will be bad. You can come back and watch
Okay.
this video. Okay, I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see.
Here's the thing. My lukewarm take is that the movies will be fine. They won't be epoch making. They won't be horrible trash that no one likes. I think they'll be safe is what they are. I think they'll be safe. I think James Gunn isn't taking big swings. And I think he's very defensive with this. He's been holding his cards to the chest for quite a long time with this. And having seen what happened with the Snyder version of Man of Steel, which that film has grown on me over time, but that's not how you want to describe a fucking Superman movie. You want the Superman movie to blow your face off, right? You want it to be like this bombastic, holy shit, wow, Superman, that's awesome. I think it'll be mediocre to okay, which again will not result in high merch sales. It just won't. And I think that with the fact that they already have some movies coming out well before this deal takes place, they actually get the advantage of watching McFarlane's tie-in stuff not sell. So I guarantee I am putting this down as something I think is actually happening. They're probably tooling up or designing a whole line of comic book related stuff, and it's just a question of when they pull the trigger. Do we pull the trigger right away as kind of a means to pivot away from the movies and get market share? Or do we see that the movie stuff is selling and we start with the movie stuff because we know that works already in the marketplace, and then bring in the comic book stuff just as that starts to wane? It's really a question of what happens with McFarlane. And such a unique timing issue, too, here. With the license beginning next year. It's like blessing and a curse for them, really. Because what if they want their comic book stuff to be 6-inch, but they want to continue the movie line on behalf of the fans, and they're like, well, we don't want this not to scale. We want people to be able to enjoy these. I'm not saying Mattel is this kind of company, but if I had to guess, it seems like with their ethos, I don't know that they would just start over from scratch with the movie stuff, unless they were like 6-inch, or if they would say, we're going to do 7-inch, and we're going to honor that for the rest of that particular line. I don't know. But it's possible because of your Masterverse, Origins, Cartoon Collection, all slightly different scales. You can kind of pick what you want. Even within WWE, they've got 6 different scales depending upon which line you go after. It's kind of crazy. Now, granted, not all of those are hyper-articulated figures. You got your little guys and whatnot. Who knows? Who the fuck knows?
You really don't know. We really don't know. And, there could be, a Financial Times bulletin out tomorrow morning that totally scraps everything we're talking about now and actually just... Oh, no, it turns out it actually was just a silly little crossover project, and it's not even toys.
Yeah,
but
but the quotes that we have just do not paint that picture.
Strong. Yeah, they're too strong.
Yeah, so don't worry, kids. We're okay. And just that renewed partnership line, the fact that they talk directly about there being basically a bidding war and that Mattel won the license, not a piece of it, the whole thing. So, this is Mattel's race to lose at this point, And I do think that McFarlane's sales are going to drop significantly from people like myself who have been dabbling and waiting for certain things to come up. And it's like, well, no, I'm not going to get this whole collection then rebuy XYZ. I don't see that happening. And every time I can't get something from McFarlane, I go and I get an older Mattel figure to fill that gap. So now, unless they are not doing comic-related stuff, which they're gonna, it's just a question of when, I might as well just wait and just do the Mattel stuff. It'll be cheaper, easier, and I have more faith in the quality of the product than I do with the McFarlane stuff at that scale. Now, superpower stuff, top notch. Yes, I have some woes with distribution. I have certain issues with repaints and things like that. But in terms of quality control, holy fuck. We've had one major issue with the original Batwing canopy, which they then retooled and fixed in a later release of that toy. Beyond that, quality's there. I don't know. I think that's a big question. For those of you in chat that are already collecting DC stuff from McFarlane, are you going to stop buying McFarlane stuff and switch? Or are you going to snatch up everything you can and wait and see? Play wait and see with Mattel? Because I know that as a Mattel guy, right? I owe no company nothing, right? I have no ties to any company. I'm not really a brand loyalist ever, okay? Except when it comes to something I use over and over again that I can rely upon. You talk about food or, consumables, right? I think it's a little bit different. I like what I like, and I try to stick to it. But for example, if Motu Origins, you get the classic toys that, like they say, Mattel is issuing all the toys we already made. But over here, we've got McFarlane is going to do, based on the same bucks, they're producing all the toys that we never made. We're going to let them run with it, but they have to use our tooling and our scale and all this shit. I would not refuse to buy from McFarlane if that were the case. Okay. However, from my perspective, I think Mattel is a superior toy company in terms of consistency, quality, price point, etc. So I have more confidence in Mattel's ability to carry a DC line in a way that will please more people than not. But not knowing what they're making, it's like, what am I endorsing? I'm endorsing the possibilities, for sure. We got an answer here from Attorney Eclipse who says, I'll continue to buy, meaning McFarlane, as long as the scale... I'll continue to buy with Mattel as long as the scale stays in line. Also, I'm one of the few with an original Batwing that the canopy is not broken at all. Pretty lucky on that. I have like 3 or 4 of the Batwings. I only opened one, and that canopy broke almost instantly. I did it 2 or 3 times. I'm like, yay! And then the 5th time I opened it, it snapped on me. So I have some backups, because a buddy of mine locally found one for $6 at a Walmart and was like, do you want this? I'm like, for $6? Yes. Just to have the backups. So he's definitely going to continue if the scale stays together, which I think that they have experience in the scale, depending upon where they're going to pick up characters in the line. I think it makes sense, but it would not surprise me at all if they did comic book stuff in 6-inch and had a different brand name for it, and then they had the cinematic stuff in 7-inch so that they would be able to keep with the stuff McFarlane had already put out, so that they're not, because if you're Mattel and this Superman film has come out, McFarlane has done all the Superman figures in 7-inch, and then whatever other movies they have coming out, I don't honestly know, between now and the end of that deal, if you're Mattel, would it make business sense to start over with those figures? I don't think so. So, and knowing that they're already in an established scale, if the sales were good, because what if we're both wrong and the movie's really fucking good? Or it's good enough to the masses that the toys fly off the shelf. That puts pressure on Mattel to kind of, for the sake of their partners DC, to to go in that direction. Do you think that might have market influence on them?
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And like at the end of the day, it is about the money, and they are going to try and angle things to be as profitable as possible, which any company is, is
Well,
going to try
sure.
and do. And look, just maybe to take a different stance on it, because I know I'd asked and you'd also continued on the discussion of, if you are deep into McFarlane or, fairly deep in, is this it for you now? Is this over? Like, maybe you could look at that in a positive way. Like, there is now a finite end to this line. It's going to be coming to an end at this particular time. Collect all the stuff that's there, and then you've got the full collection. You could be sitting back and looking at your complete McFarlane DC multiverse collection. I'm sure there's somebody there that idea must surely appeal to. It may be just the flip side of, oh no, they never produced that character I was waiting for this whole time, and now it's over.
Right.
Which it's a double-edged sword, but no, like this situation. Look, like you said, look, if these movies prove to be a hit, obviously it's gonna steer things a certain way. The real question is, would they be a big enough hit to move toys, to sell toys to kids specifically? I don't know. Is there any movie you can do that can do that these days? I'm not sure, but it's all in the open now. We don't know what's going to happen, and there's different things hinging on each other, and we're waiting to see how a particular movie does. We're waiting to see how products sell, if they move, if they don't move. We're not going to know a lot of this. Like, we could do 10 more videos on this, speculating until the deal
It
actually
actually
goes through
happens.
and something happens. Yeah. And we could even hear a little more breadcrumbs of information between now and then that could change our
Yeah,
minds.
and,
So
and let's not forget the context of this news is announced during this German toy fair that's happening, which in the grand scheme is a smaller event, but it is kicking off like the year. So if you're Mattel, you announce the deal here, and then throughout the shows over the summer, your Comic Cons, your Toy Fairs, your Power Cons, whatever, you start announcing what your plans are, what you're going to launch in advance. Um, and I think that would serve two purposes. One, get the fans excited. Two, almost kind of a middle finger to McFarlane and say, you can do the same thing if you want, but people are going to want our stuff more. Potentially, right? Maybe McFarlane just backs away from making some of the stuff he was going to make because of that perceived market share loss he's going to take. We don't know. McFarlane, he's a bit brazen. He's a very shrewd businessman. I don't see him backing down from anything per se. But I feel like the number crunchers will like be in his ear and he'll be like, okay, I'll tell you what. I will do what you're telling me to do and back away from certain parts of the properties because I don't want to lose my ass on not selling them. But I'm going to go super nuts and super deep with what the time I have left to give people what they want and to make toys that I want. I think it'll just be a license, no pun intended, for McFarlane to just take the kid gloves off and go a little bit crazy. So I think that it benefits if Todd behaves the way that we know him to behave. I think that is the most likely direction he'll take, especially if Mattel starts leveraging this deal and saying, here's what our plans are. And here's something we haven't discussed at all, and I'll leave this question hang while I check in with chat. What if, this is a huge what if Mattel and DC and McFarlane Toys have kind of a summit to figure out what's going to work best for both companies? Not to partner, but to kind of like not step on each other's toes. I think that would never happen, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen with this stuff. So I'm going to let that sit and linger for a second. Bob Squad's... Oh, sorry. Jason says, Mr. Garcia says, aside from his Batmobiles, I stopped collecting McFarlane because he would not release a decent Wonder Woman. Then he did, but no one could get a hold of one. Exactly. That's why I have this older Mattel one sitting here. Because I couldn't get her. I thought she looked great. Couldn't get her. So Mattel is not shy about Wonder Woman. So maybe we'll get the Linda Carter Wonder Woman there, which is, I want one so bad. So bad. But the aftermarket on those is like $125. Fuck that. Bob Squad says, good to know I wasn't the only one with the Batwing canopy problem, and also I'd have to imagine that basic DC characters on Motu Origin Bucks would happen. I think it's a no-brainer. It's been done with Primal Age in the past, which was a Funko Super 7 kind of endeavor. Might have been all Funko. I don't remember exactly. It was Funko, right? Because they also did the Savage Land stuff, too. I have the Savage Lands, all the horror stuff, and I looked at a lot of the superhero stuff they did. I thought it was cool. And that you're seeing a lot of Motu customs with, like Mr. Home Arcade and a bunch of other people have done, like the Justice League on Motu Bucks, and they look cool. It's different, But if it's a crossover, it's gonna be that. It's gonna be that, a crossover, because Mattel has been doing that with the Turtles, which I did not realize this, but the King Hiss they just are about to release is the last one. That's it. They're done. Which I think that's smart, in as much as it's a confined line that gave us some cool parts to fuck with. And also, I would say many more hits than misses in that line, if you're into that. And I've got one or two of those figures. The King Hiss is very tempting, having looked at it a bit closer. One, because it's an articulated foot soldier. Two, because the King Hiss part is just like, holy fuck, it's awesome. So I think we would see a Motuified DC lineup. Now, do I want that to happen? No, I don't. I don't care. I don't need another crossover line. I need the rest of my vintage Motu realized as origins, and I'm out for the most part. But Mattel knows that, and I have something to discuss here in a bit that will kind of speak more to that. Little Pee-wee says, was DC Icons line Mattel? I think. I'll look that up. It says, would love a revival of that line. Have any of the multiverse movie lines been a moneymaker? Genuine question, not snark. I think that the DC multiverse movie stuff, if it didn't sell, it would have stopped making it a long time ago. I would guess that some of it sells better than others. So like the Christopher Reeve Superman, selling like hotcakes. The 89 Batman, they've reissued him twice already. In less than a year, they've reissued him twice. The Batmobile as well, from 89. And then there's certainly a market for the Batman Forever, Batman and Robin stuff. There's certainly a market for the Nolanverse stuff, I would imagine that...
So these are all classic movies, though. What about, can you think of any somewhat current or contemporary property that he had a license to?
So like the Batman, I have no idea how those have sold. I really have no idea. I have not noticed that mainline characters from that film have gone on sale, because I scour Big Bad's clearance quite often, and I haven't seen the Robert Pattinson Batman or the Penguin, for example, go on clearance. They sold well enough, and I haven't seen them go on clearance. I've never seen them on a peg, which tells me that they probably sold at least well enough, right? Again, that's just an educated guess based upon available information that I have. DC Icons is a DC Collectibles line. I think that's direct from Warner Brothers. Looking at the packaging on this, Let me see if I can get more. Okay. So let me just go ahead and bring this up since we're here. Let's look at a listing for one of these things and see what we know for sure. Because that's a really great question. So I want to hide your comment here to give me more screen space. Here we go. So this is a DC Collectibles, DC Icon, Superman, Man of Steel, which has got some higher value on it. And, you know, I'm not a fan of this, the torso sculpt, because the shoulders don't look, they got balls for shoulders. Not a fan. And the brand here is DC Collectibles. I think this was probably because it is DC specific branded, this does feel like probably a Warner Brothers endeavor. If I had to venture a guess based upon what I'm reading so far. Because if it was made by Mattel, the Mattel logo would be on here, don't you think?
Yeah, and I remember those DC Collectibles figures. I think a few of my Batman the Animated Series figures were from the DC Collectibles lines. Yeah, I can't really give you too much of an opinion on them, even though I have a few of them. It's been so long since I even looked at them. I think I was picking them up around 2015, 2016. I'm not even sure if does anybody know, do DC Collectibles still even exist as an entity? I'm not even sure that they do anymore. I don't really see their branding on stuff anymore.
All the Google search I did for DC Icon toys, everything is an older toy. There's nothing new. There's no website for it. Nothing. Okay, Reddit. Gotta love Reddit. There's a thread that says the canceled final wave of the DC Icons toy line from 2015 to 2017. That was only around for 2 years. And there's a lot of fans for this, apparently. There's some concern about the quality of those toys. There's people asking if McFarlane could resurrect it and so forth. And granted, that's a year ago. They didn't get very far. And it just kind of petered out. And because of the time frame that it was there, maybe Mattel manufactured it, but it was a DC brand. But then the tooling does not match what I know to be the DC stuff Mattel was doing at that time. So I can't say for sure. Well, let me just type into Google. Who manufactured DC Icons toys? The first thing that comes up is DC Direct.
DC Direct.
Yeah. And
DC Direct and DC Collectibles are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and there's a DC Icons comprehensive history video from a guy named Anthony Reviews from last year. It's almost an hour. So that would give us a lot of information, I think. And it specifically says in multiple listings I'm seeing here, they're made by DC Collectibles. So it's a Warner Brothers attempt to get into the toy market for 2 years, failed miserably, and then they just kept licensing it out. So, you know,
you could see it. You could see the name again, if not that exact style. They'll probably resurrect the branding to get the old nostalgia buzzers vibrating.
Right on. So, Steve says that the Origins crossover is moving to Thundercats, which I am very excited for, because they've made it so that you can just make regular Thundercats out of the figures. These are the Thundercats I've been looking for sure. And he says that DC probably after that. Probably, and that makes sense. And, you know, DC Icons, like figuratively speaking, is saying, they've been gone since 2017. So that's gone. But But chat is kind of pushing our hand here a little bit with what they want us to talk about. So let's talk about Club Grayskull for a second here. On the heels of this announcement with DC, Club Grayskull comes out for Motu. It's $10 a year, and according to them, you get members-only items, which I don't think those are going to be figures. I think they'll be like merch. Get first access to secret select public sales. Excuse me. Quote: go inside the castle walls with us, meaning behind the scenes crap, and then have your say in member polls, meaning that they're going to poll the club members, so people that are highly invested fans, and that infers that those votes will have more weight than the public ones. I don't have a huge problem with that because I get that part. And yeah, I joined. As soon as I saw it, I read everything. And when you go to sign up, you have to agree to the terms of the club. But here's the fun part. Those terms aren't published yet. So if they haven't published the terms yet, you click and you say you agree. And then you buy it. I haven't agreed to any terms because they don't exist yet. So I thought that was kind of fun. But if you look at the terms from Hot Wheels, their Hot Wheels red line, there is a reseller addendum in here, which I love, which says you cannot pre-sale anything that they have not charged you for, which doesn't mean a whole lot. Aside from that, it's real basic stuff. So we don't know for certain if that's going to be a similar terminology or not. But going back to the actual offering, there's exclusive merch that they're showing off. So there's exclusive items, priority access sale, exclusive content, and voting privileges. Basically, for 83 cents a month, at $10 a year, to me, just to shorten the line for checkout when something comes out, I'm good with that. I'm good enough with that. Hasbro Pulse, $10 a month, fuck off. But this, after seeing the model work for other brands, and they've taken their time to bring this out, tells me that they're going to be going a bit deeper with Motu. And I also think that they've had, two distinct versions of the line for a long time. And they're getting to a place where they want to kind of get a bit more focused on it. I think this is a smart move. I don't mind subscribing to this. If for no other reason, out of sheer curiosity to see what it is all about. This is not a situation where they're going to raise the price next year because they have a precedent set with all their other clubs that are $10 a year each as well. And on the forum, I read a couple posts from people from Hot Wheels and Barbie that said, no, these memberships are great. It streamlines the process of buying for them. And they like some of the membership exclusive stuff that they get access to. So this means that a DC one is probably going to be coming out, if I had to venture a guess, which would also be interesting. What were your first impressions on the Club Grayskull thing? Because they are asking us in chat what we think about it.
Well, my first thoughts were just straight away negative until I looked at the actual figure they were quoting. So a tenner for a whole year, I think, is fine. Like, you could join up today, $10 gone, and then that's it, done. You've got access for the year. Okay, fair enough. That seems fine to me. And yeah, I will second your statement. Yeah, fuck off Hasbro with your tenner a month for your subscription. I don't give a shit about that.
Screw that.
The only thing, I suppose, if I'm looking at this, I'm looking at it in the vacuum of, okay, I'm interested in Motu, so I will pay this fee for Club Grayskull. I'm only really now in the last couple of minutes since you've mentioned the Hot Wheels one, you've mentioned the Barbie one. I'm sure they have other properties that have similar subscriptions. I could
They do.
imagine if you have a lot of interests in Mattel properties, these $10 can add up if but
Yeah.
if you're sticking to one particular property, in this case Motu, $9.99 for a year, that's really not too bad. I can't really complain. Like I'd have to be a real cheapskate miser fuck to complain about that. Like
Yeah.
that's okay.
And for me, it really boils down to I'm paying that $10 because I'm hoping it means that when Mattel Creation stuff comes out for Motu that I want, it'll be easier to get with less sweat on my brow, and that to me is worth the price of admission. Anything else I get to me is a bonus. However, a year from now, I could totally change my tune and say it wasn't really worth it to me. But I've had such good luck so far with the Mattel Creation stuff. That luck eventually is going to run out where I can't get something. Almost had a thing happen with Rio Blast, but they've been smart. That thing is still up for sale, Rio Blast. So, because I think he was such an anticipated toy, the question is, did they just make a lot of stock of him in anticipation of his anticipatory nature? I don't know. But he's there, and I think that's smart because that was one that people have been clamoring for almost since the beginning of the line. And, there may be things that come up in the future that are not going to be so heavily produced, or even there would just be a high demand for them, So a lot of possibilities. Checking with chat here, Little Pee Wee says, "Hey, thanks for the information about DC Icons. Lots of potential. Definitely had its problems, but it was improving towards the end." Oh, okay. Giraffe, welcome to chat. Says the terms are only asking for your second born. No worries. Well, jokes on them. I had a vasectomy after my daughter was born, and because I knew I got it right the first time, because she's a beautiful, intelligent young lady. And then Mad Rick coming in says, You didn't say and nor do I think you sound like that, Mad Rick. Welcome to chat. I think you're a first timer. If not, welcome anyway. So this means we'll get proportioned and pinless figures that look good? Well, knowing how Mattel does things, probably. Because a lot of the Elites figures in WWE do have pins, right? Like you can see them. But they handle pins a lot better than Hasbro does. So I can't promise you anything because I'm not Mattel. But does Mattel also do pinless stuff? Yeah, a lot of the Masterverse stuff is pinless. So it's possible. But proportions, I think you're going to get some good stuff. I think quality-wise, you're going to get some good stuff. There's a high probability of soft goods with this stuff. I think there's more good than bad in the possibilities of what they're purporting to do with this deal. The Club Grayskull thing is kind of an aside for me. But it's big news. It's really big. Because they've had these Mattel Creation clubs since Origins started. They've had the Hot Wheels one forever. Barbie's been forever. Monster High and so on. They've had a bunch. They have like 5 or 6 of them right now. And this edition, to wait this long to do it, I think there's a few reasons for it. I think one, they wanted to prove to the Motu fans, hey, we're dead serious about this, about Motu right now. And also to get away from the Motu Classics Club shit. To kind of distance themselves from a certain so-called toy expert, in big quotes. I think that was just, we're not going to repeat the mistakes of the past. But seeing how the Creations model has worked for them, it's probably been a big moneymaker for them. I think it makes sense at this point to do it. I don't know why, but it does, as far as like why they've just suddenly decided to do it. It doesn't make sense unless they've got some specific shit coming. I think something is going to be coming here to justify Because if you're going to be exclusive access to things I don't want, what the fuck am I paying for, right? Their early attempts at merchandise for Motu, like the T-shirts and hats, they're just horrible. Horrible. Like, you can't even just do a basic classic Motu logo on a shirt. They haven't done that yet. They're just like, it's like someone's 12-year-old got loose in Photoshop and said, I made some shirts, guys. Like the Eternius shirt they did was like a postcard. Motherfucker, just give me like that picture that you have of the product, or give me the box art on a fucking T-shirt. I'd buy 3 of them. But they won't do that, right? So if this membership, maybe they're going to get the good graphic designers on there. You know, like they are ignoring, when it comes to the brand of, in terms of merchandise beyond the toys, they're ignoring all the really good artwork that exists on Motu stuff. They're not making T-shirts that evoke this kind of vibe. And I think that if they pull the pole out of their ass, maybe they'll make some good merch. And I think it can be justified by saying, well, we've got people paying for this membership. We want to give them exclusive merch. Maybe this is going to be, quote, the good stuff. And that's hopeful. That's wishful thinking at best. And again, I shamelessly say, I'm paying for it because I want early access to the Mattel Creations toys so that I don't have to worry about getting one as much as I used to. And that's it. Anything else is a bonus.
And
Hello,
I think
all
there'll
music.
be a lot of people in a similar position to you that are somewhat deep into the line when it comes to, Origins in particular in your case. And look, at the end of the day, let's say none of this stuff comes to fruition that you're hoping for. You've only paid $10, and
Right.
Fuck it. Like, if it does turn out to be a bit of a flat, a bit of a letdown, at least you weren't paying monthly, waiting for something that was never gonna materialize.
Exactly. I threw down the $10 because I had the $10, and it is out of sheer curiosity and the means to talk about it. And maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe it'll surprise. Maybe it'll be just exactly what I think it's going to be. Any way you slice that, it's worth the $10 to find out, for me personally. I am not saying that any of you should get it or not get it. I'm just simply telling you it exists, what I know about it, and why I did go ahead and purchase it. Giraffe saying, yeah, we needed a club. The Barbie and Hot Wheels gangs need to be humbled. Join the club, grab a bat, and swing with all your might for your Motu gang. I don't want to beat up anybody. My wife collects Barbie, damn it. I don't want to hurt her. But we don't have a Barbie membership either. Like, we're not that kind of Barbie collectors.
Like I was saying, though, that's where it could become a slippery slope if you have multiple interests in Mattel properties, and you've got your Motu subscription, your Hot Wheels subscription, your Barbie subscription, your Jurassic subscription. Like,
they don't have a Jurassic one.
Not yet.
They don't have a Jurassic one.
Not yet.
But let's all right. So let's say that, like, there's 6 of them, right? So that's $60 a year, right? Now, if I divide that by 12, we're still talking $50. Wait, sorry, hang on. 60 divided by 12. That's $5 a month for access to those 6 brands, which is still half of what Hasbro charges. So even with that concern, we're still talking a much more reasonable amount of money for that kind of access. Plus, if I don't like all those things, I can just subscribe to the one that I want. So I think the model makes a lot more sense. I think if Hasbro did something similar with the brands, it would make more sense to me. If they did $10 a year for Pulse, yeah, I'd do it. Because they have some good sales, some early access stuff going on. The price point is just ridiculous, though. There's no way to justify it. There's no way to make that money back in any real sense unless you're buying a crazy amount of Hasbro stuff and you're buying it directly from them, which is itself a crapshoot. their checkout system is not fun. I do not like it at all. Mattel Creations, on the other hand, their checkout system, generally for me, has only gotten better over time. They've actually acknowledged some of the problems they've had and fixed a lot of it. But we'll see. We'll see. I do wonder if this kind of is a harbinger or a sign, if you will, that the vintage Motu stuff really is going to be just all on their site and more of a retail thing as opposed to the we printed this many of it and good luck with the pre-order. I don't think that Rio Blast was that low of a popular figure. They just happened to have more on hand. I really don't think that. I think for the hardcore collectors, you know, because you look at like Cyclone, he's sold out, and that's not a deep cut, but it's deep-ish. And for this Rio Blast, that, you know, if he's Skeletor, can sell out, right? I think that, and Rio Blast hasn't yet. I think we might be seeing a shift in how they're doing business over there. I don't know. Especially when you look at it through the lens of this membership thing happening. Any thoughts on that?
It is a bit tricky. Now, you did mention about the timing of it earlier. You were wondering about the timing. Maybe I know this is a morbid topic that I often revisit on these discussions, but maybe the timing is the ticking clock to people like ourselves with disposable income expiring or possibly needing to spend said income on health related issues. So maybe now is the time to launch your members only club and extract those last dollars from us while you still can. Hit us with the deep cuts, keep us in the loop, drain our wallets, take all our money before we venture into the grave, and hey, look, that's business, I guess. At the end of the day, but timing is everything.
So, yeah, and with Motu, obviously, we've got some playsets that might be coming soon. And Fright Zone has been bandied about quite a bit, and certainly we know that they're going to come back to the snake layer at some point. But that also leads me to ask, like, what do you think about the possibility of DC playsets for a 6-inch line? Do you think they would bother?
I think there's a decent possibility. Now, once again, though, so we are so early into this, this new deal. So I would guess they will play it safe to begin with in terms of your typical toy line product launches. Handful of figures, maybe a vehicle. They may test the water possibly with like a small to medium sized playset of something popular and see how it goes from there. I'm not saying it's totally out of the question that they do a large playset, but I can't see them taking a gamble like that very early on. I think they're going to wait and see, how the waters, if they're choppy waters to begin with, and see what type of merch they can move. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. It just depends on what the property is, what the playset is, the age group it's aimed at. There's a lot of variables there. I suppose one thing that we don't know 100% yet is it going to be a very collector focused type of mindset they're going to have for product, or are they going to be trying to cast as wide a net as possible and get the kids in and get them buying all the merch? Ideally, you want the kids getting the parents to spend money on stuff. So it will just be interesting to see what the focus will be for them once this deal actually comes into effect.
Well, breaking fucking news on that front, by the way. It's like we've been talking about timing for this entire show. Like, when the news came out, I immediately asked you, hey, you want to come on and do this? You're like, I got to eat dinner. Like, all right, cool. And we waited. And then the LA Times article came out. Club Grayskull got announced. I was like, oh, well, this is perfect, right? Well, as we're talking about Club Grayskull, there is a new announcement when it comes to that. During next week's Mattel Creations revealed show, there's going to be a Club Grayskull members-only figure announced. And it says, this character is an extremely powerful character from Eternia's prehistoric past. I hope that means dinosaurs. They're asking about... They're saying hero. You were saying?
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely something dinosaur related or dinosaur adjacent from that, you know, those vintage toys. But I suppose that answers your question. You were wondering, you know, in terms of exclusives, would it be something decent? If it's a figure, that's right. Pretty significant.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. Badger is here for lunch. Welcome, Badger. Good to see you. Ozzy is here as well. Says hi. Right back at you. So that's crazy to me. Like, that's almost enough that I would be like, let's just stop the stream and start over again, different topic. But this is turning into a Mattel thing, which is fine. We'll continue to talk about DC. But the reason I even know that is I just happened to click away from the stream, and I saw that I got an email from Mattel Creations. And it said, you've entered the clubs of gates of... I don't want to show my email, but... They write flat out, say March 6th, we're revealing a members-only figure. And I feel like this is where Origins Vintage is going. I don't know if they're going to be exclusive to that, but I think they're going to take the figures that they're like, these are not going to sell wide. They're just not that popular. I think Hero was a good guess. They said an altered version of King Grayskull, possibly. I think that's a very strong possibility. That you get a variant of King Grayskull. So you get like the buck and the armor has a different color, or the cape's a different color or something. I know that a lot of the early backers of Eternia would be like, ah! I would be happier than a pig in shit. I'd love to get a King Grayskull in hindsight. And resale prices on him are not that bad. They're about $100, anywhere from like $60 to $100, depending upon who you buy it from, which, considering the extremely limited nature of that figure, that's not that bad. But I haven't pulled the trigger because I'm like, something tells me not to. And maybe it'll be that. Who knows? Eternia Eclipse says, Hero, the figure was teased on the desk of one of the creators was sometime last year. Geek Strong's guessing Savage He-Man. Very, very good guess. And Jason saying, I wonder if they do a Jurassic Club, because he joined that. Giraffe saying, Revenge of Keklar. Just kidding. I mean, it's possible. Anything is possible. We also don't know if it's Origins. Could be Masterverse, right? We don't know. Like, if they had a Club Grayskull Origins only, I would probably do that. For $5, you just did. Because I love Masterverse, but I have the 4 figures I want from that line. Because they're going to go on my formal fancy shelf behind my desk in my office when we move to Oregon. And every house we have after that. And I have the classic He-Man. I've got a new Eternia Skeletor that transforms with parts into a really nice traditional Skeletor that happens to have a cape. I like that. And then I have Hordak and She-Ra, both of which I just acquired. By the way, you can still get those last two at Big Bad. I don't remember if it's Hordak or She-Ra, but they're like half price. So you get the pair for right around like $50, which is not bad at all. Badger says, Jurassic? Denver the dinosaur finally? No. And Giraffe says, Masterverse for nerds, cool kids, or Origins. I'm both, though. And then he goes, as I look at a shelf of New Eternia. And New Eternia is popping off. And I've said before, I'll say again, man. if New Eternia was where they started with Masterverse, that might have been the toy line that I collected instead of Origins. I'm glad that didn't happen because I love my Origins stuff. But as I look at these stacks upon stacks of Origins figures surrounding me, it's a problem. You know, like right here, I got 4 or 5 right there. I got all 4 of my Horde Trooper Primes and my Necroconda back there. I'm so glad that we're getting a bit of a break. At least I am, for about a month or two, on toys coming in, so I can actually get back to chipping away at this place. I do have a box from the Badger that I was talking about opening live today. I'm gonna just film it because I gotta move stuff just to open this fucking thing. I'm excited for it, but I want to acknowledge that publicly. Badger, thank you for sending along that care package. I haven't opened it yet, and I will. Lil Pee Wee is acknowledging the Jurassic Club as a possibility. I would love that too. I think it'd be cool. And Ozzy says that Batman versus Motu is my dream. It is not. It is not. But if they did like a MonsterVerse crossover or something, there you go. T-Rex. Let me make that big. Hang on a second. Let me just get that big. Look at that. It's a beautiful dino.
Yesterday, Smith's.
That's
Lovely
great. And that's 1/18 scale, right?
1/18 scale. That's right.
And is that a newer one, or like was that on clearance or something?
That's well, it's new for over here. I believe they've been available in the States for at least a couple of months now. It's my first time seeing it over here, so I kind of jumped on it. Like you know the situation with me. I have that T-Rex mold a million times now. I really only got the set for it's the Jeep. It's always the vehicles that pull me towards buying these sets. But you know, you can never have too many T-Rexes, really.
No, you can't. You know, I got my, super colossal stuff over there, and keen-eyed viewers will notice I also have a super colossal Indoraptor still in the box over here. Couldn't say no. The price was right. And this was just after I'd gotten, it was more of an action feature type of Indoraptor. And somehow, through coupon code madness, I think, what was it? I got 2 of them for $6 or something. Shipped. I was like, all right. Yeah, exactly. And they're perfect for 6-inch scale and stuff. So but they're still in the box. I haven't put them on the shelf yet because I just haven't done that. But one of the things I look forward to the most when the floors are cleared and the shelves are prepped is doing a lot of toy photography with dinosaurs and other figures, because I just love the idea of people running from fucking dinosaurs. So, with this exclusive being a prehistoric, I do think Savage He-Man is probably the most likely, and it is probably going to be a Masterverse Savage He-Man. I think that's probably the most likely. But if it ends up being an Origins hero or a variant on King Grayskull, I'd be happy. I can't claim to know, but with these 2 big announcements, with the DC license and the Club Grayskull thing, it certainly has made me a lot more curious and actually excited for the Mattel Creations event next week. I was kind of meh about it. I was like, it's whatever. But they announced the deal a week before this event. You can't tell me that they're not going to at least show some artwork or something. They've got to show something. There'll
be something. I
yeah,
think
because they're going to be
another press, some type of significant announcement. Something will definitely happen.
Yeah.
To shine more of a spotlight on this deal that's taking place.
Yeah, what if? It's a big fucking what if. All right. But what if they announced their first line was going to be all Super Friends based designs, starting with the Legion of Doom in scale.
Crazy.
Yeah, And then they also said our first play set will be the Legion of Doom headquarters, and we'll do Hall of Justice the year after that, in 6-inch scale, as like as a crowd fund. You kidding me? Like I've always said that like DC in the larger scale, I'm not really interested. This announcement that they're doing Mattel, I have zero qualms about taking everything I've bought of comic accurate DC, putting them into a bin, shoving it to the side, and starting fresh if they go that direction. Which is nuts because I've told myself I'm very I'm extremely almost done with Marvel Legends, in my opinion. I have 2 figures coming tomorrow, and those are MCU related. I bought a Matt Murdock from the No Way Home because the new Daredevil's coming out, and I bet you that the value on that guy is going to shoot up because the interest will be there. But I also feel like we're going to get a variant of him to coincide with that television show, but they haven't announced anything yet. And I already have the Netflix Daredevil figure thanks to Largo. He gifted me that thing, which is really cool. But like, and I think MJ's the other one because they got her down to like $8 or something, and I like my MCU figures for sure. But the comic accurate stuff is always going to be where my heart lies the most. And when it comes to Marvel Legends, like they've done a good job of getting on a lot of the characters I really, really want. And everything else is cherry picky. So I think it's almost poetic in the universe that just as soon as I, put the brakes very solidly on one line of comic book heroes in 6-inch, that another one would just come to snatch up and take its goddamn place. Not the worst problem to have, but because I was talking the other night. Lauren and I sparked up and had a cocktail, and I was telling her like this might be the year that I start to really pump the brakes on the modern stuff because I have so much of the stuff that I want. There's a handful of Motu Origin stuff that has yet to come out. And a couple things a year, are definitely going to be a big thing. Marvel Legends, again, very cherry picky with that now. And I told her, like, with the DC stuff, I'm almost done as far as what I think I want. And it's true. I've only got a handful of figures that I need to get what I originally set out to do. And I could buy those figures tomorrow. I could buy them tonight. I could buy them right now. And I would have everything I need. So I told her, I was saying that like, the modern stuff for me is going to start to slow down this year, which gives me bandwidth to start hunting for the holes in vintage. Like G.I. Joe was going to get more focus and stuff like that. Like even Transformers. Again, there's a handful of things that I want. I got 3 Transformers yesterday. I got Cosmos, Ramjet, and Shrapnel. They do the last remaining Insecticon from that original 3, which is
Bombshell.
Yeah, Bombshell. Thank you. Yeah, Kickback they already did, and I have. So when they do that, I'm good. The only thing I'm missing from Transformers, really, is like Shockwave, the other 2 Seekers, aside from Starscream, main Seekers, Skywarp and Thundercracker. And then maybe if they made a Voyager scale wheelie, but I don't need that because I have a core class, an extra one of those I can put in there. And the Dinobots, because wrong place, wrong time with collecting for me. If they reissue all the Dinobots, I'd get those, and I'd pretty much be done. I'd be happy with Transformers even. So it was just kind of this thing of like, I was telling her, I think that we're going to slow down a little bit this year. On the same day that a bunch of stuff hit the mailbox. It was a weird conversation. I says, I don't want to do this all the time. Like, I love getting these toys, but I really want to focus on curating what I have. And working on the vintage toys that I have and having more fun with dioramas and photography and making, animation, like play motion kind of stuff. That's why I started this in the first place. Like, staring at it's great, but I want to play with my fucking toys. So this announcement is very bittersweet for me, because I'm almost apprehensive to start another line like this. I,
Nothing's written in stone.
No, of course not.
You want to do this now. You may not want to do it some months from now, and whatever happens in that respect.
Right.
I do think, though, ultimately, you're if you're not already there, you've gotten to a good place where it's like the analogy I often use with the garden. When it gets to the point where you're really just taking care of what you got, curating it, and maybe just putting a little thing here and a little thing there and moving something from left to right, that's when you really, for me anyway, that's the ultimate satisfaction. It's the ultimate peace. You're not constantly thinking about the next thing. Oh, I'm missing this guy, or I need to get that guy. You're in a nice zen place with the collection, and everything is a bonus. Everything is gravy. Anything you get from here on in, it's all good.
Yeah, and kind of like with that in mind, one of the things that I got in my last shipment was this 1954 vinyl Bandai Godzilla. And the reason I got him was because I think it was Goji gifted me the same, like the vinyl version of the 84 Godzilla, which is my by far favorite. And I was just like, well, those are the two that I really want. If they do a vinyl Monsterverse one, I'll get that, and if they do a vinyl Final Wars, I'd get that, and those are my 4 Godzillas, and I'd be happy with those vinyl ones. People always ask me why I don't have more Godzilla stuff, and I have plenty. I've got the 2 4-pack sets. I've got these 2 vinyls. I've got 3 or 4 of the 10-inch Playmates ones. And I've got the Godzilla plushies. I got 2 of those. That's a lot of Godzilla stuff. It is all the same character with the exception of the 2 4-packs from Mezco. And that's the era that I like the most. The only thing that I would probably want in addition to what I already have Godzilla-wise would be like an SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah, a Ghidorah. That would be about it, a Monster X. And even that, I don't need it. I don't. So it's like all of these things, to me, I'm never going to be done collecting. And that's the ultimate conversation she and I had. I'll never be done. Because if we slow down on toys, that means I ramp up film and other things. So I don't mean to make this about my collection right now, but it's an interesting thing with this announcement that makes me really give pause to some stuff. That when I started this, and Mark, you were there pretty much from the beginning. Like, you witnessed it even if you didn't realize it at first. The very beginning of my collection. The very first toys that I bought for myself with the intention of collecting, I documented on this channel and have documented most of those since in one way or another. And in July, it'll be 4 years I've been doing this, which it feels like 4 months sometimes, time flies when you're having fun, right? And I had a cat in here, our DoorDash driver. He brought us our food, and he saw the collection on the wall. I was like, wow, because what we have, as you guys probably know, physical media all on one wall, and I have a couple toys across the top. He was like, damn, and he was wearing like this old school Venom logo, had the Lethal Protector cover on it. It's a black hoodie. That guy's a fan. And I says, that's nothing, you should see the toys. He goes, could I? I'm like, yeah, fuck it, come on in. And he came in this room, and he almost fell over. He was like, first thing he said was, is that a Unicron? I'm like, it is. He goes, holy shit. And he just kind of lost his cognizance for a second. And he says, how long have you been collecting? And I told him, like, since July of 2021. He goes, that's it? He's like, how? And if I showed myself in July of 21 this room, my July 21 self would ask 3 questions. How the fuck did you do this? 2, when did you get married? And 3, maybe eat a little bit less McDonald's next time. I think those are the 3 things that I would say to my future self. And I say all of this to illustrate that these things come in ebbs and flows, right? We talk about the DC toys. They've been through so many different licenses just in the last 25 years. And so many variations of these toys. And that Mattel announcing this today, I think only really on a long enough timeline should inspire hope that maybe there's a version of DC toys that we're going to get that we've never gotten before, or we can at least be assured has quality. It'll all be okay. But all these things happen. It comes and goes. It's always fine. You know, I would like to think that in my voice people can hear that I'm a little bit less manic about these things now. When announcements would come, I would be very about things on the show. Very, not sensationalist or fearful, but just I feel like my whole world is rocked every time something new would happen. But that I've come to learn, this really is just the way it is with toys. And in the market where, you know, Hasbro's pulling out of toys to a certain degree, for Mattel to make this big of a move is, it just means that toys aren't going anywhere for a while. 'Cause I know there's some people have been a little worried about that. And I'm not saying Mattel's saving the world or any fucking thing like that. What I'm saying is that Mattel does not see the same writing on the wall that asshole, what is his name? Cox, whatever penis-related name he has, his last name, and Hasbro is seeing. So Hasbro has, for example, made a lot of really shitty decisions in the last 5 years. Basically, just before the pandemic, all the way up to now, they've made some stupid-ass decisions with what they're doing. And now they're paying the piper. And they think paying the piper means pulling away from toys. It's like, well, maybe don't invest billions of dollars into making movies when you don't know the first fucking thing about making movies. Stop crying about it and pick up your, move on. And Mattel's not doing that. And I think that also means that on that cycle, that like your Hasbros, like Hasbro and other companies that maybe are not doing as well, will come back around and things will be just fine. That's what I think.
I think it will be just fine. I don't think we've anything to worry about. And just to reiterate what I was saying earlier, if you are a McFarlane collector, you're a Spin Master collector, don't worry. It actually hasn't happened yet.
That's right.
These companies still have the license. I'm sure whatever products they've announced are still going to come out that they've announced already. And they might even hit you with a few surprises along the way before they bow out gracefully and allow Mattel to take the spotlight. So, maybe try and look at it as a way to complete or finish off a journey instead of it just being, ripped away from you, as I'm sure some of you do feel hard done by it. I know it can be a tough situation depending on what side of the fence you're sitting on, but I think overall it's we're okay. Look, as long as we have the cash, there'll be toys to buy. I don't think we have to worry about that.
Absolutely. So shifting gears away from Mattel for a moment, because I've got everyone's attention, I wanted to get your input on something I talked about yesterday with Jay. Those Playmates leaks that came out with the drill vehicle coming out, which doesn't look like a direct one-to-one reissue of the old one, but it might be. But the proportions are different. The drill is longer. And then you have the sewer playset that Playmates is re-releasing, which does look like a one-to-one. And then, of course, we have the expansion of the, shall we say, Origins-esque Turtles figures that came out last year during Walmart CollectorCon. with Rocksteady and Shredder. I think those are great. What was your take on that, being a Turtles guy
Yeah,
yourself?
I think they look good. I imagine if we've seen Rocksteady, then Bebop is not too far away, and I am still really hopeful for an articulated foot soldier in the vintage style. I'd buy a lot of
Oh,
those. Not gonna lie,
you
I
and me
would line
both,
those
pal.
dudes up. Oddly enough, the
Hmm.
reason I want articulation is so I can stand them up perfectly straight, which I could not do. Which I could not do with the vintage ones because they're in the gorilla position constantly. So yeah,
Well, yeah, and
that's
it's like
my dream.
that's like I said to Jay yesterday. I said, finally, a Shredder that doesn't have osteoporosis and scoliosis at
Yes,
the same time. You know, um, and also you have to remember the turtles, those articulated turtles. The price point was $12, $12. So it's like, okay, Playmates might. The only thing about Playmates, they're doing this, but they seem so trepidatious. Just go all in. Go all in and go nuts. And I think those would sell so hard, especially for people who are on the fence about collecting turtles again. I'm kind of getting to a point where, again, with the reissues, I'm almost done. I basically have that 4-pack that I bitched about privately with the one I had Rat King and uh, Metalhead, I think was in no Slash, and then I forget the third figure that I wanted out of the four
man.
pack. Music Man, I don't care about, but I'll take him. Like, it's a cool figure, right? But I get that, and then it's kind of take stock, if you will. See where I am with these, and kind of decide what characters do I need, right? And originally, when I put the sewer playset up for Mutant Mayhem, all my posable guys are on there now because the classic ones are in bins yet, and so I've got a kind of a mix and match, and they mix really well. But seeing that they are expanding this articulation line, it's like maybe that becomes my de facto newer collection, and I can take all the classic reissue and just put them, do the stadium seating style display and have that off to the side, or have that in the office or something, and then focus on these articulated ones. I think that's a possibility. For anyone who might be asking, and no one has, Jim, you have that Mutant Mayhem sewer playset. Are you going to get the Playmates reissue? Yeah. Yes, of course I am. And then this Mutant Mayhem set will probably take the back off of it and put it away. I'll keep some of the accessories out that are cool. Or, and this is also a possibility, I wonder how well they'll scale together. So if they scale together, why not just have this massive sewer? I don't know. And maybe modify the Mutant Mayhem playset to take that top, like the door, like the whole City Hall thing, just remove all that and just make it so you have a city street that goes a little bit further. It's a possibility. And seeing they did the Technodrome, the scale wasn't quite right. I'm worried the same thing will happen with the sewer playset as well. But it's a more wide open playset, so I think it's going to be less of a problem. So I do think. You have any concerns about that? Do you think they'll shrink the sewer playset too?
I think it's a possibility. They may shrink it solely for the purpose that the connection will actually line up with the reissue Technodrome. I'm not sure if that would make a difference, but I imagine that there was some change in size with that connection port with the shrinkage, so they may have to make some modification that it won't be an exact 1-to-1. But
Yeah.
look, we'll know if they do it. We will know about it. We knew about the Technodrome pretty quickly. It didn't take long for people to look at the listed dimensions of that toy and realize that we were missing a couple of centimeters here and there. So look, if it happens like that, it's not the end of the world. We know that it is a possibility, so we don't need to shit our knickers over it if it does happen.
Badger always has my back. Says, "Hey Jim, do you have the Mutant Laser sewer playset where you get the new the Playmates one?" There, you were asked. Thank you on that. So yeah, I it's probably going to shrink, and I don't care. I'll still get it. It'll be cool. If they have a little adapter, that's fine too. I don't care. Just knowing that these will both exist. So now you've got the van, you had the blimp, which I think was a miss, and then you had the Technodrome. Now you've got the sewer playset. They just did the pizza thrower last year, quietly, I might add. It wasn't like pushed very much. Um, I think they're just dabbling in a lot of stuff, and I feel like if you just took 1/4 of the year and pushed out all the rest of the classic reissues you want to do, because you know they're not going to do the super obscure figures. They're just not going to sell, and they know that. But just put out a few more, make some money off that, and then focus in really hard on these articulated turtles. Um, I think they're going to see a lot. I think the reason that they see market waning for turtles, what they make, is because they're not taking the big risks. And I think the sewer play set, and the drill vehicle are the kind of swings that they need to be making. The Technodrome was a swing they needed to take. Aside from, just the normal gripe of it, it's smaller. It's like, hey man, it's a Technodrome that displays awesome for less than $100. Get over it. Like, you either want one or you don't. It's that simple. And I think the same could be said with everything else they're releasing. We'll see. So I'm gonna swing.
See, like you said, they don't really take risks, and they've nearly always stayed within this particular cycle, Playmates, when it comes to the classic versions of the Turtles. They just, even when they did those 2012 classics originally, they stick with the 4 Turtles and, Shredder, Bebop, Rocksteady, essentially. So it will be interesting to see if they cut a bit deeper this time with the articulated ones. So after we get, say, the 10 main characters, so after we get the 4 Turtles, Splinter, April, Shredder, Krang, Bebop, Rocksteady, will they go that little bit deeper? Will we start seeing, Triceratons and Dirtbags and all sorts of weird and wonderful mutants? I'd like to see that. We'll just have to see what happens.
And the thing that I noted about these articulated turtles that they're coming out with, there is a nod to the original design of the turtles from the toys, but also a bit of a nod to the comics. They like a little bit closer to the comics without being an exact ape of that. the Rocksteady that they released pictures of is very akin to the original toy, which would be expected, but it looks, again, it's kind of a darker kind of tone, versus Shredder, who's just purple, which is like, ugh, really? I really hope they're not stupid, and then I hope they release a variant that looks like the cartoon. That would sell so hard. And I'll buy both of them because I think it's valid, right? But it breathes a little bit of life into the Playmates Turtles line, and if they maintain that price point, holy shit! That's the part that drives me nuts. The Mutants Mayhem toys they went crazy with, released dozens of figures, and people were snapping them up. Kids that like that movie love those toys. And at the price point they did that, and the price point these articulated ones, like, just release more. You put out more, I'll buy more. I can't. There's nothing for me to complain about with those except the fact they had a lot of pimples on them. That's it. And even then, it's like, whatever. It's not the end of the world. So good for you, Playmates. Good for you. To come back around to DC, Just Jeff is in the house. Welcome to the show, sir. Says, yo, so here's my hope for DC via Mattel. They do the wrestling tiers, basic, elite, ultimate, etc. He said he'd pay the $35 for a decked out DC hero. It would beat the 100 plus from Mafex. I 100% agree. I hope that that's their de facto. I hope they just go straight to the really decked out, over the top accessories. Like, just make the best possible version of that character you can for everything. I think if they just did that, it'd be smart. But it also, if they wanted, like, dip in there and kind of do, like, simple upgraded, I I don't see why that would be a bad idea, except it's just oversaturation. So, given that DC does have a kid audience, they're going to continue doing kid friendly stuff. And I don't think those are going to be a 6-inch scale figure. So I think the smart move would be to combine your efforts and put all your work into making the best possible figure, go nuts. Try to compete with the Japanese style figures where you've got the hyper articulation in your soft goods in the style of like the Elites. I think that'd be okay. But you better make it worth every last penny, or else it's a big misstep. So I'm sure they're aware of it. But the question would be which direction they go in. I know we've already made a bunch of WWE references to what is possible with this stuff. What do you think about that, Mark? Do you think they would do like a tiered thing? Or?
I think Just Jeff's suggestion is a really good one here. Even just for a, casting the wide net in terms of price points for where you can actually get people in on these lines. Like I do notice just from observation, those basic WWE figures are very popular with young children, whereas when you get to the Elite and Ultimate level, they're more for your adult collectors that don't mind paying a little bit more just for a very specific look from a particular era or whatever it is you're looking for in a classic wrestler. So I think if they did use that tier system for DC, it could potentially work. And I get what you're saying about them maybe not being overly keen on going the 6-inch route for kids' toys, but they do manage to do it for WWE, so maybe there is something there. And especially if we were to stick to Just Jeff's suggestion here, and you really did have a low-cost, basic entry-level figure that possibly is a little bit more kiddish looking, maybe a little bit more stylized for a younger person, it could work. Good work.
So one thing I don't know, because it has made me very hesitant to dive into other tiers. Do the basic, elite, and ultimate all scale well together?
Perfectly.
Okay.
Perfectly.
See, given that with DC, I think it'd be great, because just like with wrestling, now that I have that information at my disposal, it's like, oh, so some wrestlers that I'm not particularly keen on being super fancy, I just want a representation. I can get the basic thing, and then you've got your front runners, and then behind them you got all the other stuff. That makes a lot of sense. And if they did that with DC, I think that you'll have a lot of mix and matchers out there. Like I don't care as much about my Martian Manhunter as I would say a Superman or a Batman or a Wonder Woman or a Flash. It just, as long as he's got a cape and he looks right, I'm good. Right? But I think that if they, okay, I'm hoping against hope on this one, so bear with me. What if, this is big what if, there's nothing to support this at all, but rather than looking at comic runs or storylines, they introduced an artist series where you had a Batman that was a Neil Adams Batman versus a Frank Miller or whatever, but you went after that and you said, here are their artist interpretations of these characters. And so like each subline would be kind of limited to whatever characters that artist worked on. I think that could be really interesting for comic stuff too.
It'd be interesting. I suppose it's one of those things you would have to be careful in walking that fine line of how you market something like that, because
right,
I'm not trying to cast aspersions, but depending on your level of knowledge and investment in a particular property, the names of these artists may not actually mean anything to you. Like there are
right.
a lot of people still that would have quite a casual connection at best to some of these. So that kind of goes back a little bit to what I was talking about earlier on. Are they going to kind of focus on an adult collector that would be aware of these type of things, or are they going to try and cast a very wide net and go for the kids, go for the collectors, go for everybody in between? We shall see.
And Garcia here is calling out. He just wants some cohesion in the toys. He said DC Direct and Collectibles did have a Jim Lee run. I think it's clearly possible. Um, like for example, I think every generation has a version of every superhero that can say that's ours, And I think that for Gen X, it's the style of art that you saw on like the Superpowers card art, that kind of stuff. That which was the brand Bible at the time. It was kind of like a little bit of every artist into a similarly, proportioned artwork. And I think that maybe millennials, maybe it's more of like the Jurgens Superman and maybe, I don't know, Alex Ross Batman, just as an example. Who knows? And just so rather than trying to amalgamize all of these things into this is, a de facto Superman, which sometimes it works. Like I think the Hush designs for those characters are probably the closest thing you'll see to, like, in terms of an artistic interpretation that kind of hits on all of the best iterations of those characters. But that only comes along once in a while, and that certainly doesn't cover every DC character, right? So rather than focusing on something that is all encompassing and trying to please everybody, go hyper specific, and that will then give you an excuse to have 6 or 7 different Supermans, 6 or 7 different Batmans, and so on. It could scratch both itches. I don't know. Who know? But again, I think it's the sheer possibility of what this means that makes it so exciting. We know we're going to get the Motu crossover. That's inevitable, and that should be fun. But it's certainly not something that I want to place any sort of priority on. When it comes to the Turtles of Grayskull, I have 1, maybe 2 Turtles of Grayskull figures, and I got the Shredder, and the only reason I got the Shredder was to have a Shredder that stood straight up. It's the only reason. And guess what? When this new articulated Shredder comes out and I buy him, guess who's going to go into the parts pile? That Shredder. I don't need him anymore. Don't need him. Same with the classic Shredder, the osteoporosis scoliosis Shredder. I don't need you. I don't need you anymore in the display. Jason wants to know if they're going to get a Lois and Clark Adventures run, like a Terry Hatcher. Yeah, could be fun. Like, I love the Chris Reeves that just came out with Todd McFarlane. I think that's one of the best figures they've ever done. However, I'd kind of like to see some ancillary characters. Can you imagine a 3-pack of Non, Ursa, and Zod? I'd buy that.
Yeah. Wow, that'd be brilliant.
A Gene Hackman Lex Luthor with detachable hair. A Ned Beatty Otis. That'd be kind of fun. Perry White, Lois Lane. That would be interesting and fun to do. You can get into some like more fun characters, like what's his name, Solar Man or whatever the fuck it was from Superman 4.
Yeah.
And this would be like a nice little. But because of that, if you did Superman 3, you could get a Richard Pryor figure, which would be, I think that would, like, if McFarlane's not going to do it, maybe Mattel would do that. That'd be kind of fun. It'd be a good way to like rope some people in. Do the same thing with '89 Batman. Give us a Jack Nicholson Joker in scale. Get us Kim Basinger's Vicky Vale. Robert Wool. I know Robert Wool would sell his likeness in a heartbeat if it meant that he could make some money. Because what's he doing these days? Nothing. No offense to Bob Wool. I think that there's a lot of unscratched itches that this opens up. Whether we're talking about the Hail Mary pass for McFarlane or a way to make a big splash with Mattel's DC stuff. Whether we're talking comic accurate, visual media. Like, dude, fucking a 1990 Flash? Are you kidding?
So it really is like everything's on the table potentially. This is the beauty of where we are right now. It's characters, scale, style. Like it is the great unknown. Um, are we going to get re-releases of those classic Mattel lines? Like we do not know, and that is it's a great place to be in, really, because I know it's
It's
all
both the
speculation.
best and the
It's
worst
exciting.
parts of
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
exactly.
So again, we talk about timing. We see that Mattel Creations has that stream next week. Now I kind of want to watch all of them, even though I would normally only watch the Motu part. Because I'm kind of like, where are they going to sneak in a DC reveal? Because I feel because they haven't announced the schedule yet. I don't think. Let me see about that because I got the email about this here. Hang on.
I'm just kind of curious now, for those of our viewers who are into McFarlane and just Spin Master stuff, if they follow any of their, if they have any inside track on product that's supposed to be coming out or that was rumored. Is everything still going ahead the plan? Has there been any shock announcements since this news with Mattel came out? I am definitely going to be keeping an eye on the Spin Master and McFarlane side of things for the next little while to see how things are going over there.
So, I think that's also a huge possibility. What I have up right now is the Mattel Creations revealed stream page. So they're showing Monster High, Uno, Little People, Street Sharks, Motu again, and then they have Barbie, Mega, WWE, Hot Wheels, and that's all they're showing at this point. Given this announcement, it would not surprise me if DC suddenly got tossed in there. But they do have a schedule, so that's good. So it starts next Thursday. And it's a 2-day event. So you've got Monster High, Uno, Little People, Street Sharks, and Master Universe on the first day. Second day is Barbie, Mega, WWE, and Hot Wheels. It's a live event, right? I am willing to bet, and I can't throw money on it because who am I betting? The world. How much you want to bet on either the first or second day after the last event is done? That's when they throw something up about DC.
Yeah,
if they're going to do it.
Yeah, if it's going to happen, it will be on one of those two times that you just mentioned.
There's a little. Oh, well, I thought that was an asterisk. That's an R. But I definitely want to see, like, what the fuck do they have to talk about with Uno for a half hour plus? I don't get that. Maybe that's a misnomer. Like, they announce a couple new decks, and they're like, oh, by the way, here's a DC teaser. Like, what? Who knows? Who knows what's really going to happen?
We may not see anything. Like we are we're very far out from when this is actually going to go through, and we were still
right.
There's plenty of time for them to put something together, but who knows? They may be, as you said earlier, they may play it very close to the chest, and they might not give us anything, or at least anything significant beyond some, airy, fluffy press release style stuff. So we'll wait and see, but we are excitedly waiting with anticipation.
Yes, and I think with that, we risk talking in circles here, so maybe we should wrap up. So I think we've definitely defined our feelings, and they're mutual, that this is more exciting than not, and that the possibilities are what fuel that. This club announcement for Grayskull, I think, should be good, but it was definitely interesting no matter what to see what happens with that. Will we get a DC version? Probably. Because they had a DC Classics line back in the day that was mail order at the time. It would be interesting to see where they might take something like that, but we don't know enough to make any definitive statements at this point. It's just that the rampant speculation before the LA Times article came out has been focused a little bit. Can you imagine how crazy talk this would have been if we didn't know for sure they got the whole license?
Oh yeah, we'd be. Until you got your hands on that LA Times article, I think I was a little bit in that camp, and it was like, what is going on exactly? I
Right.
don't know how to feel about this. And I will mention briefly on the Club Grayskull thing from a purely, let's call it a journalistic point of view. Now, at least you have a somewhat of an inroad now on when it comes to announcements and stuff. So it'd be nice when we get to see Grindhead, do a stream like this. He may have some news for us that only he is privy to because he's dropped $10 and given it over to Mattel for the secrets, and they will share their secrets with him.
Oh, man. Yeah. So with that, thank you very much for being here. Thanks to all the folks that popped in and were watching. We're at 2 hours 15, which I think is plenty. Don't be surprised if you see me come up over the next few days. Maybe Mark will be here, maybe he won't. Maybe I'll have somebody else. Who knows? If there's news that pertains to any of the stuff we're talking about, it is exciting. Even in a world where I am buying less toys per capita than I used to, because I've got a really realized collection. Toy news really, really excites me, and it makes me want to buy more toys, and I hope it does you. So, thanks to you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Had a great time.
Hey, part of the show, you're part of the family, my man, and so are you guys. So we'll see you again at some point in the hopefully near future. But in the meantime, may all your card backs be straight. Your grinds, hope they're merry. And may you be able to get anything you're looking for at any given time at a price you think is reasonable. We'll see you next time. Cheers.